So welcome everybody. It's great to have you on this webinar, whether you're listening live or whether you're listening to the recording. And this week we're going to be looking at the Alkaline Diet Success Formula Week 3. Let me just tell you what we've done so far and position this week's content in terms of what else we've been looking at. In just a moment while I get on to slideshow. And then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so as you know, in week 1 we looked at winning the mental game of health and proper hydration. I've got some more stuff on hydration which I'll share with you towards the end of this session because I'm very excited to tell you I've just got my first alkaline water ionizer, and it is dramatic, the difference in taste and the impact of that water. I didn't realize what a difference it would make. We talked about alkalizing to add vitality last week. This week we're going to talk about gentle detoxing, and I'm also going to be introducing you to this wonderful world of food combining. And I've actually just used it in action tonight. I've had a properly combined meal and I feel great. Instead of that sort of slightly weary, heavy digestion, complex meal feeling, I actually feel really vibrant, really healthy, really energetic, and that's a result of combining my foods properly. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do that during the course of this webinar. Next week we'll be looking at regular alkalizing exercise and the importance of that, because as I've touched on before, exercise can be acidifying as well as alkalizing, so it's important that you're exercising in the right heart rate range and that you're exercising the proper way so that you're alkalizing with your exercise rather than adding to any acidity. We'll be looking at stress, because clearly stress can be a very, very big factor in our alkalinity or our acidity. We want to be alkalizing through our mental game and our mental approach to life rather than creating acid thoughts and adding to the acidity. And then finally, as I say, in week 6 we'll be looking at building momentum. So that's where we are. We're at week 3, gentle detoxing and food combining, which is a really effective way of further detoxing this week. So as before, do take some notes. I'll be taking questions at the end, and get ready to take some action with all of this, because it is all about the actions that you're able to take. Just before I start the content this week, I just wanted to remind you of the home play, as I like to call it. And I'm hoping that by now you've had a chance to listen to my expert interview with Ross Bridgeford from Melbourne, Australia. Ross is a great guy. He's running a very, very successful alkalizing products business. He and I came across the whole alkaline diet approach in the same way at a Tony Robbins seminar called Unleash the Power Within. I think he attended a couple of years before I did, but it's very profound when you start to put this stuff into action in your life. Tony Robbins uses it, other very successful people use it, and it really makes such a difference, because it's hard to do well in life if you don't feel well, and so many people don't. They don't feel well, so they don't do particularly well. But when you get your health right using the principles of alkalizing that we're talking about here, these principles used by Tony Robbins, Dr. Robert O. Young, many other very eminent successful people, then it makes such a difference to your energy, your productivity, your relationships, your business, your bottom line, the whole thing. And I also asked you to download the acid alkaline food charts, some recipes, and the water guide from that's web URL there. I'm hoping that you might have read ahead a little bit and got some sense of what I'm going to be talking about with detoxing, although I'm not going to go into huge detail with detoxing because I don't think I need to, quite frankly. When I share with you how I do it and how you can do it simply, it's not complicated. But above all, as I've said in the first 2 weeks before now, take slight edge baby steps, because these are the things, the baby steps, that will change those old habits and patterns. And as you do, you'll notice the changes in your mind and body. And just before we started recording this evening, I was talking to Cindy, who's been sharing with me how she has been changing her habits and patterns around maybe, you know, not buying the regular cake when she passes the cake store, or not having the cappuccino or the cup of coffee. And these are the things that compound to produce a massive difference over time. It won't make any difference if you'll still have it once, but when you start to make these changes and they layer on top of each other, then the results are quite dramatic. And I think what you can see with this program is that literally every week we're layering a new step onto your framework, so that what you've got is an unstoppable momentum building. And by week 6, it is literally unstoppable. And I know that many of you listening to this are already getting terrific results, even in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And just think what it's going to be like after 6 weeks as we continue to layer these slight edge steps one on top of the other. So let's get into gentle detoxing. Now, I've called it gentle detoxing because there's a lot of stuff out there on detoxing which I don't really agree with, and certainly from my experience doesn't work too well, because the simple fact is that most people are simply too toxic to do a sort of severe 10, 15 or 20-day detox. They're going to get withdrawal symptoms, because what happens is your body has come to rely on the level of toxins which it's been accustomed to in the standard Western acidic diet and lifestyle. And therefore, if you suddenly go on a retreat or you go away for a couple of weeks to somewhere where it's literally a very different regime, you are going to get some benefit and you are going to detox, but there are a couple of issues with it. One, in my view, you're going to detox quite quickly, and in some cases too quickly, so you may well suffer some flu-like symptoms, sort of some nausea, some slight sickness in the stomach. You might get skin complaints. I've heard of people getting rashes. Any skin complaints they've got sort of become exaggerated, because often things become worse before they get better, and I've seen examples of that just this week with people I've been coaching. But the second issue is, when you come off your 10-day, 15-day, 20-day detox and you go back to, quotes, real life, what happens? You start polluting that river again, and it doesn't take very long before your beautiful crystal clear running stream becomes a polluted pond. And that's not what I want for you. I actually want you to enjoy these benefits, feeling great, detoxing, feeling healthy, vibrant, alive, mitigating the possible risk of a major illness, avoiding the minor ailments, the things that interrupt your holidays and weekends. You don't need those things when you start to put this into practice. So that's why I advocate gentle, not radical detoxing. It's very simple because it works, and I can swear by that. Now, this is the bit that I found profound, and I did touch on this in the introductory webinar, but there is an increasing body of research that suggests that aging is no more or less than the result of the accumulation of acid wastes in the body. And as you probably know by now, our bodies acidify when we die. And therefore, isn't it amazing to think that by putting some of these alkalizing and detoxing principles into action, we can not only maybe delay the aging process, in some cases actually reverse it. And I just find that totally profound in an era where people will spend a fortune on anti-wrinkle creams, Botox. We all want to live longer, happier and healthier. And here's the solution. It's right here in front of us. And yet, slight edge stuff isn't that sexy. People want the quick fix. We live in the internet society where it seems that there is an instant solution, but the slight edge is your instant solution when you make those changes incrementally day after day. So, according to Sangwan, we get old because we're not disposing of all those internally generated acid wastes and toxins. And what happens is that those simply keep accumulating inside the body, to the point that they actually have an impact on us. Now, I don't want to go into the detail of free radicals and antioxidants here. Just very, very quickly, free radicals are basically cell molecules that have an electron missing. Free radicals have an extra, antioxidants actually have an extra electron. So your free radicals have got the missing electron, the antioxidants have got the extra electron, and therefore the antioxidants, anything with antioxidant properties, can actually neutralize, literally, zap the free radicals, which will, if not delay the process, may even reverse the aging process, which I think is just so exciting. That's the very, very brief overview of how and why this works, and why you might hear people talking about antioxidants and things with antioxidant properties and why they're important. Now, this is a really interesting fact when I came across this. We are actually born with an alkaline blood pH of 7.44, and as you know, that's higher than Dr. Robert O. Young considers the optimal in adult life of 7.365. In other words, we're more alkaline in our bloodstream when we're born than when we become adults. And what happens is, as we develop an acidic diet and lifestyle, our blood pH moves down to 7.35 or below, and that's where we start suffering the symptoms. That's where we start suffering the unhealth. That's where we start risking holding on to weight, particularly around the middle, where chronic conditions may start to manifest after a while. And it's all slight edge stuff. And you know about the slight edge now. You know about how these small simple changes or small simple things compounded on a daily basis produce a massive difference. So, you know, over the space of 20, 30 years, an acidic diet and lifestyle will have a very chronic effect on people's health and well-being. It won't necessarily affect it this week, next week, the week after, but it will do in the long term. And that's why this approach works, because it's literally reversing the effect of years and years of acidic diet and lifestyle. And it's also one of the reasons why people find it sometimes difficult to extricate themselves from that acidic diet and lifestyle. And this is why I talked such a lot about winning the mental game of health at the beginning, because we form those habits over a long period of time, and they are going to take a little bit of disengaging. They are going to take a short while to become unhooked from and to start moving with these new principles and ways of living. But when you do, it is so fantastic, as many of you are also already attesting, and as I can certainly testify based on my own experience. So if you've ever wondered why young children seem to have so much energy, well, that's probably one of the main reasons. In other words, their blood pH is more alkaline, therefore they feel more energetic. They just literally got energy to burn. And you know, when you look at adults in midlife, some less than that, some younger adults who just seem to completely lack energy, it's the toxicity in there. It's literally they're living in a stagnant pond. They're not living in a free-flowing, crystal clear stream where things can thrive and survive. And it's a very, very different game in that scenario. So what I'm going to do here is just go into a little bit more detail on the gentle detoxing approach that I suggest you follow. And I've already alluded to the fact that rapid detoxing does lead to unpleasant withdrawal symptoms. I see this time and time again, and it can even happen when you start drinking alkaline water for the first time, when you start taking wheatgrass or any other green powder mixed in with your water for the first time. In fact, the alkaline water manual that I'm sitting here with tells me that I shouldn't be drinking water over 9.5 pH because it will give me it will give me detoxing symptoms, even as somebody who's already balanced their body chemistry. You know, this stuff is very sensitive. So we have to go at it gently and carefully, and that's why I don't advocate this rapid detoxing approach or the radical approaches, because not only do they create health, sort of immediate physical manifestations, but they actually play havoc with our psychology, because suddenly our psychology is being thrust one way, and then it has to come back and live back in the real world. And the other thing I'd like to say is I think rapid detoxing can be bad for the heart. It can actually put the heart under a lot of pressure. So I'm hoping that you've got the sense that I'm just not a fan of this, and I'd much rather you took a slight edge approach to it and enjoy the benefits for the rest of your life. Now, something I have touched on, and I know that many of you are starting to experience this, is that your taste buds change when you start to alkalize and detox and get healthy in this way. And many of you are already saying, I'm going off coffee a bit. I didn't drink much alcohol last week. In fact, somebody was telling me they used to drink, you know, a number of bottles a week of wine. I won't say how many bottles, and I won't say who it was, but you know who you are. And actually that's diminished dramatically. To the point where, you know, the occasional alcoholic drink, fine, great, you know, it's quite enjoyable, but actually there's a sense that I don't pollute my cleaned up environment with this toxicity. Because as I've said before, you know, alcohol is the product of decay. It is pure toxicity. And, you know, we all live in an environment where, you know, sometimes we want to be sociable, sometimes it's appropriate. But when you start to have the conscious awareness of what's going on here, then you do begin to want to make very different choices. And this is where your taste buds will help you, because as you begin to alkalize, your taste buds become very much more sensitive to alkaline foodstuffs and drinks. When you're used to drinking sodas, alcohol, and eating sort of acidic foods, you know, red meat burgers, chips, all of this sort of stuff, then it's almost like your taste buds become numbed. And as you gradually alkalize, as your blood pH moves to 7.365, the optimal, then those taste buds actually start to recognize the flavor in natural foods. I'll give you an example. Tonight, I had broccoli for my evening meal, together with some tofu and some stir-fried vegetables, and a little bit of sauce. It was actually a pre-packaged sauce. I don't use them very often, but it was just convenient. But I tell you what, it was perfectly combined, and you'll understand that in a moment when I tell you about food combining. But more importantly, I actually washed and boiled or lightly steamed broccoli in highly alkaline water, because I've now got this water ionizer. And the difference, first of all, in the colour of the broccoli as soon as I washed it in the alkaline water, but secondly, the taste. I actually tasted a couple of bits of this raw broccoli before I steamed it, and the taste totally changed. And what happens there is it takes off all of the pesticides and brings that foodstuff back to life, so it's literally got live energy all through it. And once I'd lightly steamed the broccoli, it just tasted delicious. And I drizzled a little bit of extra virgin olive oil over it, put a little bit of black pepper and rock salt on, and it was a delicious, delicious meal. So your taste buds do change to the point where you don't want to laden anything with tomato ketchup or brown sauce or vinegar or you know, any of those acidic things that you might have done before, or a rich flavored sauce in order to create some flavor, because your taste buds will do the work for you. Now, I touched on some of this in the overview webinar, but I'm going to go into more detail here on caffeine, for example. I did say that caffeine is poisonous in quantity, and indeed it is, and therefore my sense is, why would you want to put something into your system, even in smaller amounts, which in larger quantities is literally used as a poison? It's simply toxic. Now, people get in the trap here because they say, well, no calories in coffee with no milk, but it's not the calories that are a problem. And you'll notice that I haven't mentioned calories once in 3 weeks of webinars yet, and neither am I going to be mentioning them in the remaining 3 weeks. They don't need to come up. We're looking down the wrong end of the telescope. We're looking at the wrong information when we're looking for calories, because it's toxicity we need to be watching, and alkalinity. So caffeine is a toxic substance. Now, if you like your teas and coffees, as I said before, the thing to do is gradually migrate off caffeinated versions onto decaf, but the decaffeination process itself is toxic, and the decaf coffees and teas do contain toxicity. So your best bet is to come off onto something like a herbal tea, or if you've read Ross's guides, Ross's alkalizing guide, you'll notice that he recommends redbush or rooibos, which I particularly enjoy. And you can even add a dash of milk to that if you really want to, but it's lovely black. And it's very hydrating. There's no caffeine in it, and it's alkalizing. So if you want a hot drink, that's the best bet in my view. That's my cup of tea, quite literally, and I enjoy it very much. I used to drink quite a bit of green tea, and I will still have the occasional cup of green tea in moderation, but it does contain caffeine. It's also acidic, and despite being high in antioxidants, and I've explained what that means in terms of neutralizing free radicals, it's still acidic. So if I can get an option that's alkaline but gives me the same effect in terms of a nice, relaxing, enjoyable hot drink, then I'm going to drink redbush instead, which is what I do. I've talked about alcohol, and I'm not going to preach on alcohol. It's entirely up to you what you do on this one, but there are a lot of people out there who decided they're not going to do it, and Tony Robbins is one of them. And I know a lot of internet marketers who don't touch alcohol either, because they're aware of what it does. And as I said, it kills brain cells. I need every single brain cell I've got, and you know, therefore I'm going to use it in distinct moderation. Now, the fizzy drink phenomenon, this is fascinating, and the expert interview I'm going to share with you this week is from Isabel de los Rios. Isabel is a fantastically successful exponent of this get healthy in order to lose weight approach. She has written an ebook which has literally sold to the tune of millions and millions of dollars, and I was very lucky to get an interview with her a couple of years ago, which I'm going to share with you on the website this week, so you'll actually be able to hear me talking with Isabel. Now, she really opened my eyes to the whole notion of diet varieties of fizzy drinks, or sodas as they call them in the States. Now, the way she described it to me, which is just so profound, is that artificial sweeteners have no nutritional benefit in them whatsoever. What happens is, as you consume those artificial sweeteners and they hit your digestive tract thinks, oh, I'm getting some nutrition here. But then the brain is actually able to work out from the assimilation of those, quotes, nutrients, that there isn't any value in those, quotes, nutrients. And it says, send more water, send more food, send more drinks, send more something, whatever it is that's going in. So they're actually a real trap to fall into. And if you've noticed, people who drink diet varieties, and I'm not going to name the brands here, but you know which brands we're talking about, they tend to be less healthy and more overweight than people who just drink the sugared version. Now, I'm not suggesting you drink the sugared version either. It's highly acidic. You know, cola is pH 2.5, and it takes massive quantities of alkaline water to neutralize a half pint of 2.5 pH cola. So why would you want to drink this stuff? And as I say, when it comes to the diet varieties, it's even worse. So any sort of drink which contains sugar, artificial sweeteners, even fruit juices, you should be reducing your intake of in the interests of cleaning up the toxicity in the system. Anything that contains additives, and we're talking about E numbers here, particularly in Europe. Any E number is, when it's added to food, that has to be disclosed on the contents packaging. And these E numbers fall into categories. I'm not going to go into the detailed categories, but basically the less processed foods you can eat, the better, because you've got to get rid of those toxins. Those E numbers are there to preserve, very often, they're often preservatives, for example, they're there to preserve the shelf life of the food, and in doing that they create toxicity in that food. And so by consuming those processed foods, you're adding to the toxicity of your system. Now, this is where the healthy live foods come in. If you can possibly cook with fresh foods, live foods rather than processed foods, you're not getting that toxicity, and so you can clean up your inner terrain and avoid the risk of adding to it through processed food consumption. So I really urge you to cut down as much as you can on anything tinned, anything pre-prepared, packaged, that will contain additives in order to keep it fresh or to improve its color or to improve its taste in some way. Which leads me on to anything with additives in, really. I think I've said enough about artificial sweeteners and sugars. There really are no sensible ways of getting this without getting toxicity. And what will happen is, as I say, your taste buds do become your best friend, because you don't need the additives, the artificial sweeteners and the sugar to make it taste good, because you're tuning in to the natural well-being of those foods when you start to make these simple changes. So it's all about consuming a larger proportion of natural live foods, and I talked about the broccoli that I had for my evening meal tonight. And if you can't get it fresh, frozen will do. Sometimes, we all have to live the convenience lifestyle occasionally. And somebody asked me this week, how are frozen veggies? I said, well, not as good as fresh, but they're better than not veggies at all. So if you need to get your veggies frozen, then that's okay. Now, I could spend half an hour talking about the next topic, but one, I'm not sure it's that fascinating, and secondly, it's a little bit tricky to talk about in some ways. But look, the fact is that most people's colons are coated with a mucus-like substance which actually stops them absorbing the full nutrients from the food. It's a bit like an engine that's coked up, and therefore it doesn't fire properly. It doesn't burn well. And what happens is the nutrients will flow through the colon without being absorbed, and the brain says, send more food because I'm not getting the nutrients I need, rather like it does with artificial sweeteners. And therefore, what we need to do is to gradually cleanse the colon. Now, I'm not advocating any sort of complex, invasive, unpleasant treatment here, and I think you probably all know what alluding to. But the fact is that with something like aloe vera, you can actually cleanse the colon of that mucus layer so that those nutrients and all the other rubbish that's in there will actually flow away, and your system will burn much leaner, much more effectively. And this is one of the best ways of detoxing. And yet it's so little understood. And I was blown away. I was literally amazed when I did my research to write the AV diet, just how much the colon is a factor in our toxicity. And as I say, most people are living with a toxic colon. And one of the implications of that is that you can be carrying between 17 and 14, 16 pounds of extra weight literally in the colon. So, it's really important if you want to enjoy optimal weight, quite apart from optimal health, to actually get going with this. And the simplest way is to drink or take an aloe vera supplement on an occasional basis. Now, if you go to somewhere like Holland & Barrett, they actually sell a colon cleanse tablet, and the advice is to take one of these a day for a month and then leave it for 6 months and then do the same again for a month. Now, I've done this and it's terrifically effective. The other thing you can do if you want something that just becomes a daily habit is take an aloe vera juice in a small quantity every single day, probably about a fluid ounce, and that will just start to gradually slight edge cleanse your colon. You don't need to do anything invasive or dramatic with this, but aloe vera is the stuff here. It's also highly alkalizing, you'll be pleased to hear. So we're actually getting a double whammy with our aloe vera. We're cleansing the colon, but we're also adding to the alkalinity of our bloodstream. Now, if you're not squeamish, have a look at that web address. Don't look at it now if you're listening live, but I would urge you, if you're listening to this afterwards, have a look at this website. Now, it is a product for which goes into a lot more detail on colon cleansing, and I actually used that product to get some background information when I was doing my research. And if you're somebody who would like to investigate this whole issue of detoxing the colon, then that's the place to go. And there's some great information there. But as I say, it's not for the squeamish, some of it. So that's all I'm going to say about the subject. So I think the message that you're getting here is that take it slowly and steadily, make the slight edge changes using the steps above, and you will start to experience these benefits, and they will compound and layer on top of each other gradually. Okay, now just before we go on, I'm just going to take a sip of alkaline water. That is so lovely, that water. It's just difficult to describe. It's a different flavour and taste. It's cleaner, fresher. It's just wonderful. Now, what I've done this week is I've actually decided to combine or bring in food combining with detoxing, because actually it's occurred to me that food combining is probably one of the best ways that you can detox on a regular basis. Now, there is some science behind this, as there is behind this whole program, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it, just to give it some credibility, really, because some of you may have come across the work of Dr. William Hay. Now, he introduced the idea of proper food combining back in about 1910, 1911, and his ideas fit beautifully with those of Dr. Robert O. Young, in that he believed that there's one underlying cause of health problems, and that's the over-acidification of the body and blood. And that's what I've been talking about, as we've gone through this whole program. What we're avoiding here is acidification. And what proper food combining does is it helps the body maintain its natural and delicate chemical balance. Because what happens here is that Dr. Hay, he classified foods into 3 different types according to their chemical requirements for efficient digestion. So firstly, you've got alkaline forming foods, particularly vegetables and some fruits. You've got concentrated proteins, which would include meat, fish, eggs, cheese, and these are acid forming in the digestion process. And you've got concentrated carbohydrates or starch foods, which are also acid forming in the digestion process, and these would include grains, breads, all kinds of flour, sugars, foods containing sugar other than naturally occurring sugars in fruit. So what you've got here is you begin to realize that in order to digest effectively, what we really need to be doing is eating alkaline forming foods separately from acid forming foods. And that's the obvious thing to do, isn't it? It's quite hard actually when you start to think about it. So the principle here is that our physiology, our bodies were not designed to digest complex meals, because when you've had a complex meal, and we can all identify with this at Christmas or New Year, for example, some time where we go out for a big bash and it's a large complex meal, you know, lots of different carbs, proteins, fruit and veg, the whole lot, and it's hard work, isn't it? You know, it's really hard to digest that. You feel exhausted. You know, digestion can be an exhausting process in those circumstances. So our bodies were not designed to digest complex meals like that, because amylase is the enzyme that we require to break down carbohydrates, and that requires an alkaline environment, whereas protease, which is the enzyme that we use to break down proteins, requires an acidic environment. So you can immediately see that if you combine proteins and carbohydrates in the same meal, you're creating effectively an internal war in your stomach between acidity and alkalinity, and the stomach just doesn't know what to do. Consequently, it's having a real battle. It's a literal war. So the way to get around this is to eat proteins and carbohydrates separately. Now, it's quite tough to do in a restaurant, and actually what I've often found is I have to sort of send the meal back and say, actually, could you change, or in advance, say, could you change the potatoes or the rice or the pasta for an extra dose of vegetables or some extra salad, so that I'm actually not combining my protein with carbohydrates, because that's proper food combining. Now, you don't have to get meticulous about this. But the reason I did it in the meal that I just enjoyed before I came on this webinar is that it allows me to stay alert, active, energetic, totally with it, rather than feeling drawn into the complex digestion process. Yeah, I don't food combine perfectly all the time. Life gets in the way, you know, it happens. And I'm not urging you to do it all the time. All I'm saying is try it and experience the results in your body, and just see what a difference it will actually make to your energy levels, and also ultimately your health and your well-being and your weight if you've got some weight to lose, because this is one of the most effective ways of starting to release weight. And in my view, it's the key reason, and the only good reason in my view, why Atkins works, because actually Atkins is basically a version of food combining, and I don't want to get into that in any more detail, but I don't advocate that approach, but in my view that's one of the main reasons it works, because it doesn't combine proteins and carbohydrates. So in order to food combine, and as I say, I'm not suggesting you do this at every meal, because it will mean that you can never have meat and 2 veg. In other words, you can't, well, you could have meat and 2 veg if it was broccoli and Brussels sprouts, but you couldn't have your potatoes and your Brussels sprouts. You need to be allowing not less than 4 hours between starch and protein meals. But the good news is that vegetables, and this is the great news, is that you can combine vegetables absolutely freely with either protein or carbohydrates. And that's what I did tonight. I combined vegetables, quantity of vegetables, with some protein, and you know, the results speak for themselves. It's wonderful. Feel energetic, vibrant and alive. So your vegetables, again, as usual, they're the best friend here. And if you look at the AV Diet ebook, I've got a lot more information on exactly how to food combine. I don't want to go into it in any more detail than I have done now. I think you've got the key principle, the simple rule, which is to eat proteins and carbohydrates separately. And you can go into more detail if you want to, and if you want to experience the results of food combining by reading the relevant section of the AV Diet. Now, as I said to you, veggies can be combined freely with either proteins or carbs. So your asparagus, your aubergine, your broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, green beans, onions, parsley, parsnips, peas, peppers, spinach, swede, turnip, water chestnuts. Those are just a few things that you can combine freely with either proteins or carbohydrates, which I think gives you some tremendous options if you want to try this out. Something else I want to mention while we're talking about this area is it's generally not a good idea to wash your food down with drink, because what that drink will do is it will begin to interfere with the digestive enzymes, the digestive process, because water and other liquids do begin to dilute the digestive juices. So you should maybe, if you want to drink some water, drink it half an hour before you eat. It might just take the edge off your appetite, which is another good tip for people who want to lose some weight, particularly before you go out for a meal. don't drink for up to an hour after any meal that includes animal proteins, because that will better enable the digestion process. A possible exception to that is a few sips of warm water, because that can, under certain conditions, aid digestion after a meal. So as I said, you don't have to food combine religiously to enjoy the benefits, but what I would say is just try it out if you haven't experienced it before, because I think you will be amazed at what sort of impact eating like this can have. And as I say, I find it a tremendous way, a tremendous adjunct to effective, gentle daily detoxing, because it just gets rid of that sort of heavy feeling, and means that you can live with energy and vitality, that natural energy and vitality that you were born to live with. And while we're talking about eating patterns, I'd just like to say it's not a good idea to eat late at night. And personally, I never eat after 8 o'clock at night, because I want my body to have a chance to digest the evening meal before I go to bed. And I hear a lot of people say, oh no, I don't have time for breakfast, don't really eat much for lunch, have this huge meal in the evening, and I go to bed. And actually it's the most unhealthy thing you can do, because you're just not metabolizing away that food. You're not dealing with that meal before you actually go and lay down for the night, and it's a very, very unhealthy way of living. So if anybody's listening to that and falls into that category, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, really crucial, as I've alluded to before, and don't save everything up for the last meal of the day. So lots more content for you to look at here. Again, some great slight edge steps that you can take if you're not already taking them, and which will torpedo your results. So what I'm suggesting is just try food combining out. See what happens when you properly combine for a couple of meals this next coming week, and notice the effect. And as I say, you want more details, there's a lot more information on this in the relevant chapter, chapter 4 of the AV diet, and you will find the effects quite amazing. I'd like you to read ahead a little bit onto the section on alkalizing exercise, which is Appendix 2 of the AV diet, and so that we can really hit the ground running on alkalizing exercise next week. And I'm hoping that you're already starting to feel the urge to exercise, because what happens is it comes up from within. You feel this great energy in the body and you just want to work it, and you will sleep better, your circulation will be better, your skin will look better, you'll look younger. There are a whole host of benefits that go along with regular daily exercise, which are far more than just weight loss or just even feeling healthy. It's just absolutely profound. Do listen to my interview with Isabel de los Rios. I'm going to post that on the membership site, and I'll also post a link to it with the recording to this webinar, so that you can listen to Isabel. She's a wonderful lady. Her approach is so consistent with what we're doing here. She's incredibly successful. She has a massive following the world over. I'm very blessed that she agreed to talk to me, and we had a lovely conversation. And I think you'll hear from the conversation what a wonderful woman she is. She has her own personal weight loss story, which she shares in the interview, and some quite candid stuff which she shares, which I think is really well worth a listen to. And above all, and I say this every week, keep taking those slight edge baby steps, because this is what's going to make it happen. And this is why this approach isn't like dieting, because it's not radical. I've been telling you to detox gently and gradually. I'm not telling you to do it or advocating that you do anything at all radical with your life, because it's just going to interrupt everything. As I say, it puts pressure on the heart. It blows your psychology all over the place, and it creates this diet trap, which I think so many people are in for large portions of their life, which is so difficult to escape from. And these first few weeks of the Alkaline Diet Success Formula are the point. It's a bit like getting out of the Earth's gravity. It's a rocket liftoff, and there's a little bit of fuel required to get out of the Earth's atmosphere. But once you're out there, that's a bit like the metaphor I used before. Once you're in the cruise in the aircraft, it's so much easier. And you just make these things part of your daily routine. So as I say, next week we're going to be talking about the importance of taking regular alkalizing exercise. So read ahead a little bit, get some sense of what we'll be talking about, and I'm going to give you some great tips, great information next week. So above all, please do take action with this, because it's the action that's going to change your life and get you a different set of results to the habits and patterns that have got you the results up to now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the lines to questions, and we'll just go. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go with Bridget first. So if you could just get ready to get your microphone on, Bridget. I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Bridget. Can you hear me?
Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great, thanks. I mean, it's really good to have you on this week because I know that you've been following this approach for a little while. Just tell us how it's going for you, Bridget. How you're experiencing the alkaline diet successful at the moment.
Sure. Maybe, can you hear me okay, Andrew?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Just to give you an idea where I was coming from before I actually started reading your material, I think I would actually consider myself relatively healthy.
Yeah.
I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I'm very conscious of what I eat a vegetarian diet. I don't do packet foods, no sugar, no yeast. I love my veggies.
Brilliant.
And I take spirulina almost every day in my diet.
Yeah.
Now I do drink coffee, I'm guilty of that.
Charged?
That's my one really bad habit. But it's not, I mean, I used to drink a lot of coffee before, but I have that down to a relatively mild number at the moment. But as a result of all that, I think I haven't really been, I don't think I've been in a doctor's surgery for about 10 or 12 years. I don't get sick, I don't get colds, you know,
awesome.
So I would consider myself relatively healthy.
Brilliant.
But I still suffer from fatigue.
Right.
And particularly over the last 6 months. Probably 6 or 7 months now. I know I do get more tired in the winter, but usually come the 1st of February I'm bouncing around the place, but it didn't happen this year.
Right.
And I couldn't really find any particular reason for it, and it was getting very, very frustrating because one of the things, I love to be up early in the morning, and I was really struggling with that. And the other thing was, I have, the only way I can describe it is it's felt like a fog in my brain for the I suppose 4 or 5 hours in the morning. It would get a little bit better in the afternoon, but the morning was a real tough time for me. And even though I was taking spirulina, I take it in the afternoon. So what I've done really, I mean, as you know, I've been kind of late joining the program, so I've been trying to cram in a lot of information in the space of basically a couple of days. So I thought I'd make some small changes and see what happens. So what I've basically done over the last couple of days, bearing in mind this has really only been a couple of days, is that I increased my water intake. And what I've learned is that my idea of what my body needed to be hydrated and what my body really needs, there's a massive difference. And I think I was assuming I was drinking probably more than what I was, but I think I was probably doing about a litre, maybe a litre and a half a day. But I've consciously, very consciously done 3 litres a day over the last 3 to 4 days, probably 4 days I would say. And it's made a massive difference.
And how would you, in what way would you say it's impacted you, Bridget, apart from tripping off to the loo a bit more?
Yeah, well, that's definitely been one big issue, and it's a big pain when you're on the road trying to consciously find bathrooms. But what's really happened, and I put this completely down to the water, is my eyes definitely look brighter. The whites of my eyes are definitely whiter. My eyes look clearer. I've seen a massive difference in my skin in a couple of days.
Great.
My skin is definitely clearer. I think I've even noticed that the pores in my skin are less open. They appear smaller than what they would have last week. And it's almost as if my skin is clear. Yes, it's clearer, but it feels a little firmer, if that makes sense.
I just find this absolutely fascinating because you're a ship that's been sort of sailing along quite nicely, but you know, was always prone to the odd bit of stormy conditions. And what you've done is you've sort of put a stabilizer in the system, haven't you?
Big time.
It's great.
Another thing I've noticed is that I'm actually wearing less makeup for the last couple of days, which I find fascinating because my skin. And now when I even take my makeup off, I don't look as fatigued and exhausted. I normally wouldn't take my makeup off until last thing in the evening because I don't even want to see how tired I look. But for the last 2 evenings, I've actually taken my makeup off at 5 or 6 in the evening, and I'm happy, really happy how my skin is looking.
Great.
I feel a lot less stressed, and I've had a real tough couple of days in the last couple of days. and I'm dealing with it better. I'm definitely happier in myself.
Wow.
I am consciously cutting down on my coffee intake. I'm just having one in the morning. Now, I did have two yesterday, but I'm consciously working on that. But I don't feel the need for it as much.
No. Well, look, I think this is great.
Sorry, Andrea.
Yep, carry on.
The other thing that I really noticed, particularly over the last 2 days now, I love exercising, I love walking because it's a real stress buster for me. But obviously during the winter, it's harder here to get out and do my walking. But usually, as I said, come the 1st of February, I'm out there, like once the evening starts to get bright, I'm out there either first thing in the morning or in the evening. But I haven't really been able to do it in the last few weeks. I've just lost interest. And I feel bad because I know how much it helps me, but I just couldn't find the energy to do it. But yesterday, the day before yesterday, and again this evening, I literally, when I came in the door this evening, I was out walking on the roads before I actually even realized I was out there.
Great.
I was just there, you know. Wonderful. It was just an urge. I had to do it.
Wonderful.
And the other thing which I'm really curious about, and I would love your opinion on this, is usually first thing in the morning, I would go and have a spirulina before my shower, a spirulina shake before my shower, even before breakfast. But that never really seemed to clear the fog, my brain fog. But what I've done over the last 4 to 5 days is I've added the wheatgrass to the spirulina in the morning, and I've really upped my water intake first thing in the morning. And it's, I really, honestly, I'm amazed at the way my brain feels. The fog is really, really and I don't understand why. I don't know if it's the hydration. Is it the wheatgrass?
It's the alkalizing. It's the compounding effect of the hydration with the wheatgrass, because you're getting a double whammy here. Your cells are getting the hydration that they need to provide them with the basic electroenergy, but you're also getting the alkalinity into the bloodstream through the wheatgrass added to the spirulina. So what you're getting is a double whammy. And you know, you're actually, as you say, pretty healthy foundation already, but what you've done is you've taken it to an extra 5%, and that extra 5% makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Oh, it's made a massive, honestly, I can't even quantify it. It's a lot more than 5%, because it's made a massive difference to my day. And I just couldn't believe, because the spirulina, I mean, for me, spirulina is part of my everyday life. But I just couldn't believe the difference the wheatgrass made in comparison to just the spirulina.
Fantastic.
I was amazed. Yeah, absolutely amazed with that.
Well, you know, I'm so thrilled for you, because I think you have to do this stuff. You know, I've got the information, but people have to do it. And I do meet a lot of people who, you know, for whatever reason, life gets in the way, all the challenges. But when you start to do this stuff and experience the benefits, I think you see that it's a no-brainer, because it's not that hard, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's just being more conscious, really, because I am conscious, but this was really just focusing on the things my body needed, as opposed to me just assuming I was putting in what it really needed. And the other thing I've actually noticed as well, yesterday and today particularly, is my tongue, my tongue feels a lot cleaner. Great.
That's wonderful. No, it's wonderful.
It feels a lot better.
I'm so thrilled for you, because you know, you experiencing these benefits is a massive lever. This affects every aspect of your life.
And bearing in mind, it's only been days.
Well, which is great. You know? You've got quite a you're a sort of sensitive system. You're finely tuned. And what we've done here is we've just tuned the engine that bit more, and the performance has gone through the roof, and it will keep getting better. I mean, I want to manage your expectations a bit. I think, you know, it won't keep going exponential, but I think it's just a very good example of what can happen for somebody who actually isn't in a hole with their health, and actually is probably doing okay, but wants that extra 10%, and is really starting to see the benefits after a very few days. And I think it's a great case example, and I'm so pleased you've shared it, Bridget. I had no idea how you were experiencing it. I mean, we haven't talked before tonight, and
no, and that's why I really wanted to kind of keep all this and just let you know tonight, because I'm really excited at the difference in the space of a couple of days.
Well, so me too. Congratulations. Well, very well done. It's very inspiring. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mute you back up again, if that's okay, and I'm going to bring in Cindy, and so I'll catch you later.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Andrew.
Brilliant. How are you doing, Cindy?
Good. As I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of small changes of habits on the coffee elimination, shopping choices, and choices when I go out socially.
Yeah.
some of the other things that are positive is last week I mentioned that for the first time I was comfortable in a pair of trousers that had previously been too tight to wear comfortably.
Great.
And this week I was also able to get into a rather body-fitting top to a social event that I hadn't worn for more than a year and a half.
Great.
And although I have a hard time seeing it in myself,
I bet.
several people have been telling me that I was looking very good.
I'm so pleased to hear it. We don't see it in ourselves because it's slight edge. We look at ourselves however many times a day, and therefore it's other people who will notice it in you first, and that's where you have to be good at taking compliments.
Right. and like you said, you know, I haven't lost a lot of weight. I've only lost 1 kilo. But the places where I am losing the weight are the important places. So on my ribs, my waist, my abdomen, and my hips is where the weight's coming from.
You'll get a much more defined shape, and you know, as I say, it's not all about the weight loss because you're transitioning some of that fat to muscle. Now, you're not going to become a bodybuilder, but you know, fat is less dense than muscle. So you know, it's not about the weight loss. It's about the inch loss. It's about your energy levels. I mean, some of the things that Bridget was talking about, there may not be any difference in pounds weight, but wow, there's a difference in the outputs and there's a difference in the performance. And I just think it's fascinating when people get to this stage. I call it the tipping point. It's the point at which all those slight edge changes start to have a big tipping point impact, and you just feel this has an unstoppable momentum now, and that you wouldn't want to go back. And I'm hoping that you're getting pretty close to that, and it sounds like you are because of the results that you're enjoying, the way that you're fitting into clothes again, the inch loss is coming. And how's the getting up in the morning, if you don't mind me asking?
That actually had been better until today.
Okay, I had a bit of a blip today, did you?
Yeah, but I think, you know, in general, it's an hour or 2 hours earlier than what I had been doing before.
Because you were a bit of a night owl, weren't you, when we had a coaching conversation? Yes. Yeah, and I was saying, you know, yeah, go ahead.
I am forcing myself to go to bed earlier, but you know, I'm charting how many hours I sleep, and it is just about 8 hours every night.
Okay, so you just sort of moved them to a different portion of the 24-hour clock.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I've found, and some people do find with this, is that they need maybe an hour less sleep. And just because you've always had 8 hours, don't feel you've got to lie there. You know, if you're awake and it's a sensible time, get up, because you know, your body will provide the best alarm clock. I've stopped using an alarm clock these days. I don't need one, and I'm awake at the same sort of time, feeling great, jumping out of bed, having a wheatgrass and water before I have any breakfast, and that really does start the day well. So it sounds like you're doing really, really well, Cindy. I'm delighted. Are there any other questions that you've got?
Well, I would say that my challenge still is snacks.
Yep.
Especially in the evening.
Okay.
I guess I've kind of come from a background where the meal wasn't over unless there was something sweet to end it.
Okay.
So I still have the feeling like, you know, there needs to be something sweet, either a piece of fruit or dessert or something. Yeah. And sometimes I have just raisins or coconut flakes, but I don't know if that's really good. And I'm snacking a bit on almonds, but I know almonds are high cal. So
no, it's not the calories we're worried about. The almonds are fine as long as you don't eat too many of them. They are alkalizing, but like anything else, you should eat them or drink them in moderation. But the thing about snacks is that you shouldn't do it because you're bored. If you're bored, that's the problem. Go and do something else. I mean, sometimes we snack in front of the TV, or we snack while we're doing something else. It's interrupting that pattern that causes you to suddenly want to reach for something. And I talk to a lot of people whose habit, you know, is maybe to be nibbling on something while they're watching their favourite TV program. Personally, I don't have a TV, so I don't fall into that trap. But I know that occasionally, you know, if I'm at my computer, there's sometimes a temptation to want to snack on something, and I do snack, but I will snack on, you know, one piece of fruit a day, rather like almonds, like you say. I do have a little bit of dark chocolate. I have to say I've had 1 square of dark chocolate today and really enjoyed it, and that's enough for me. I don't have to go on a binge with it. Dark chocolate is actually okay in severe moderation. You know, there are some good antioxidant properties in it as long as you don't overdo it. So, you know, if you want to give yourself a little treat, there are ways of doing it.
Okay, it's just after lunch and after dinner. Even though I've had a really good meal and it's been nice, I just feel like, well, okay, where's the sweet thing?
Well, I'll tell you what. Try this for a week. Get yourself some really good quality dark chocolate, and I'm sure you can get that in Luxembourg.
Oh,
yeah. Not Cadbury's Bourneville. I want you to get green and blacks, which is made by Cadbury's these days, or a really good quality, sort of at least 75–80% cocoa dark chocolate, and just have one piece. And I think you'll find that's enough. It'll just take the edge off that sweet tooth and give you the sense that you've ended the meal with something sweet. I do that occasionally. I don't do it every single meal, but it just gives me what you're describing.
Okay. I'll give
Have
that
a go.
try.
Have a go and let me know how you get on with it.
Okay.
Okay. Is that it? Any other questions?
Yep, that's it.
Lovely. Thanks for coming on, Cindy. Great questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to go to Naya, and I think Bridget's got another question, so I'll come back to you in a second, Bridget. But if you could get your microphone ready, Naya, I think you're still with us. Hi, Naya. Can you hear me? Okay, I think Naya's had some microphone problems in the past, so can you hear me, Naya?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear. How are you doing this week?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm brilliant, and you shared a wonderful success with us last week. I was on a high, actually. I really was on a high at the end of last week's session.
No.
With you talking about how
Thank you.
your acid reflux symptoms had pretty much gone. How's it been this week?
It's been good, but I find the more, I don't know, this might sound weird, but I've got this app on my phone and I check like before I eat something whether it's acidic or alkaline. It's really strange, but I do that and I've started to find I'm eating more alkaline foods, but like I've just broken out on my face and I'm like feeling nauseous and I go to the bathroom a lot. I don't know if that's normal.
That's great. I hate to be sounding unsupportive, but that's actually detoxing. And that is a good thing, because what's happened is your poor body has absorbed an awful lot of toxins to get to the state where it will manifest a symptom such as the acid reflux that you were describing. And what happens is you've now got to clear out all of those toxins, and everything I've said tonight about detoxing really does apply to you. And I'm not saying you do it drastically, just take it slow and steady, but I'm actually encouraged by what you just said there, because I think it means you get into the real root causes. And people do get skin issues coming out. Your skin is the biggest organ on the body. It will manifest dis-ease. This is literally what disease means. It's dis-ease in the physiology, and therefore you just got to a little bit prepared for things to get a bit worse before they get better, but I feel very confident it won't take very long to turn that all around, and I think it's a good sign, actually, Naya, in my view.
Oh, great. That's good then.
and please don't feel... Yeah, don't feel obsessed about alkalinity. You don't have to look at the alkaline principles of everything you put into your body. It's about balance, remember. But it's great that you're paying attention to it, because I think the more conscious you become aware, the easier it becomes, as long as it doesn't become in any way obsessive, which I'm sure it won't.
Oh, yeah, no.
Congratulations and well done. Is there anything else you wanted to ask me while you were on?
No, just hearing... everything is just enough information at the moment.
Okay, well, great to have you on, and look forward to connecting again next week.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Okay, Bridget, I'm just going to unmute you a sec, because it looks like you got a question, and I can't see what the question is. So, hi, Bridget. Have you got another question?
Yeah, sorry, Andrew. I meant to ask you. This morning fatigue. As I said, I still feel it. It's still there in the mornings on waking. I'm perfectly fine once I get up and start moving around, but it's just when I'm waking, I'm finding it hard, to actually get myself out of the bed. Okay, well, a couple of things. First of all, it's still early days, because, as you say, you've joined the program, almost 3 weeks in, and you've probably been doing this for what, 4 days, something like that, 5 days? Which is not really long. It's quite dramatic, actually, the results that you've got so far, and I think they're an indication of your existing level of good health.
and also the way that you've approached this. You've obviously given it some serious welly, but I also think that it's important that you allow the slight edge to take its course, and it will do when you start to layer these things on top of each other for days and weeks. Now, my sense is that you're going to, you may still experience that same feeling in the morning, but part of that is psychological because you've got used to feeling like that when you wake up. Now, one quick thought might be, is there anything you can change in your routine, either in the way that you lay out your room or some other aspect of that that will interrupt the limiting pattern? Because to some extent this has become a habit. This feeling of this way in the morning is a habit. Is there anything you can put on music-wise, or anything that you can do to sort of energize yourself a little bit? I mean, one of the things I do is I stretch. I do some stretching in the morning, almost yoga type stretching, and I've been doing that every day since the middle of November, and I really miss it if I don't do it now. If I have to get up in a rush to catch a train to London, which is where I'm going tomorrow, for example, then I miss it. But just doing something different will make a big difference, and something like stretching can be really good.
Okay, no, I'll try that. It's just, you see, before, I guess, my mornings were my best time. I would just jump out of the bed.
Okay.
But this is just for the last, I suppose, 6-7 months. I guess a lot of it is probably what's going on a day-to-day basis. I'm working harder, longer hours, but I was just wondering, maybe, was there any chance it could be low blood sugar, or would that take, is it the dehydration maybe first thing in the morning? Well,
you will have dehydrated during the night, and this is why I say to people the best way to get started with the day is a good half litre of wheatgrass and water.
Sure.
And if you make it alkaline water, so much the better, because that really will invigorate the system and move that dehydration on. I mean, I think the other thing is, you're an internet marketer, aren't you? Or you work a lot with your computer, and it's actually very tiring. One of the things I learned from a guy called Kavit Harrier was the importance of taking regular breaks every 45 minutes, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Yeah, you work for 45 minutes, take a 5-minute break away from the computer, do something different, come back for 45, and then take literally 20 minutes, half an hour. And actually your productivity over the day will soar when you break your time into chunks using a computer, because it is very exhausting. I think there's some physiological reasons for that and some psychological reasons, but just try that. And I've actually got a timer here. I mean, I'm sitting looking at a good old-fashioned kitchen timer, which I set for 45 minutes at regular intervals during my working day, and it has made a difference to my productivity, actually.
Okay, I'll give that a shot.
Have a go, yeah. Anyway, as I say, it's been great to have you with us this week. Look forward to having you on next week's call, and keep up the great stuff, because I'm very, very excited by your results, by Naya's and by Cindy's and by everybody else's on this program. It's so gratifying to see people enjoying these benefits so quickly. We're only at week 3, which is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely, and thank you again.
Pleasure, thank you. Great, well, thanks very much, everybody. Some great points tonight, some really good questions, some really good observations, and some great results coming through. As I said before, it's so gratifying for me to hear how you're doing with this, how it's changing your life, and how it's going to impact your health this year, next year, for the rest of your life. It really is hugely powerful and very exciting. So congratulations, everybody. Well done. And I'll look forward to being with you next week on our webinar when we'll be talking about the alkalizing effects of